He was thrown on the highway. A frightened kitten was crying and didn't understand why. Abandoned and terrified, a tiny kitten found himself helpless on the harsh pavement of a busy highway, his cries echoing in desperation. Confused and afraid, he didn't understand why he had been discarded, left to fend for himself against the roaring traffic. But just when all hope seemed lost, a kind soul noticed his distress, setting the stage for a heartwarming rescue. A tiny ball of fluff, no larger than my cupped hands, shivered beneath a scraggly bush. It was a kitten, frail and helpless. Just a few days earlier, while walking home from work along my usual route, a faint, desperate mewing had caught my attention. The sound led me to an overgrown patch of weeds at the park's edge, where the little one lay hidden, waiting for someone to notice. As I gazed down at the trembling little creature, I knew I couldn't just walk away. He was so tiny, his delicate bones barely concealed beneath his thin fur. His nose was raw and scraped, while one swollen paw hinted at an injury. Frozen in fear, he stood rigid, his wide green eyes filled with silent desperation. I glanced around, searching the undergrowth for any sign of his mother, but the empty shadows offered no answers. Leaving him there, vulnerable to the elements, wasn't an option. He wouldn't survive the night. Gently, I scooped him up, his frail body trembling in my hands. He didn't struggle, didn't bite or scratch, just curled up, resigned to whatever came next. My first stop was the pet store, where I picked up a small bag of kitten food, a shallow dish, a tiny litter tray, and a soft plush blanket to keep him warm. He was probably a feral, I thought, maybe never even touched a human. Back home, I filled the sink with warm water, hesitant. He was still rigid, eyes glued to mine, but there was a lessening of tension. Gently, I lowered him into the water. He didn't fight, didn't struggle. Just allowed the water to soothe him, his little body relaxing as the warmth enveloped him. To my surprise, he actually leaned into my hands. The fight seemingly washed away. He was so exhausted, so vulnerable. By the time I was drying him with a soft towel, he was fast asleep, a tiny, rumbling purr vibrating in his chest. I mixed some warm milk with a bit of the soft food, placed it before him, and held my breath. He ate ravenously, his tiny head bobbing as he lapped up every last drop. The next day, a transformation took place. He was still cautious, but the fear had receded, replaced by a playful curiosity. He chased a crumpled piece of paper across the living room, batting it with his paws. He even tentatively rubbed against my leg, a tiny purr rumbling through him. He quickly adapted to the house, exploring every nook and cranny. He followed me everywhere, his little paws padding silently behind me. He would chase my feet as I walked, pouncing on my shoelaces with adorable abandon. He'd even begun sleeping, curled up on my chest each night. He wasn't a feral kitten anymore. He was ours. Weeks turned into months. The kitten, whom I'd named Bessie for the black markings on his white fur, grew into a boisterous, playful cat, always eager for a cuddle or a game. The limp in his injured paw had healed. His fur had grown thick and glossy, and his eyes, once wide with terror, now sparkled with mischief and love. We had become inseparable. He would often sit at the window, watching the world outside, and a pang of worry would hit me. What if his family was out there? What if he remembered a home he no longer had? One sunny afternoon, as I was working in the garden, I saw him at the window, staring intently at something. I followed his gaze, and my heart nearly stopped. Just beyond our fence, a black cat paced restlessly, her ears pinned back, eyes wide with desperation. Her low, mournful meow cut through the air, a call no one could mistake. I could see it instantly, the resemblance to Bessie. The same black markings, the same striking green eyes, only hers were weary, aged by time and struggle. For a moment, uncertainty gripped me. Had I taken him from her? Had she been searching all this time? Would he be happier by her side? The thought of losing him, of giving him back, weighed heavily on my heart. I watched as Bessie stood there, his body tense, tail flicking, his gaze shifting between me and the mother cat, back and forth, caught between two worlds. Then, Bessie did something that shattered my heart and healed it all at once. He turned away from the window, gazed up at me, and gently nudged my hand with his head, his purr rumbling louder than ever. He glanced back at the mother cat one last time before rubbing against my leg, as if making his choice. I looked down at him, my eyes brimming with tears. He was home, He had chosen us. What an incredible story. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so please leave a comment below. See you in the next video.